During the financial crisis of 2008, a lot of banks had to be bailed out. Recently, we have experienced a lot of talk about bail-ins. What is the difference between the two, and why is it important?
Well, of course, a bank has two issues, right? Liquidity and solvency. Solvency refers to its capital or equity. Its liquidity refers to, does it have enough reserves to pay out people who change their deposit, for instance, into currency or in banknotes or in paper currency. So those two restraints always bother, in a certain sense, bankers. And if we take a look at the difference between a bailout and a bail-in, they both refer to what happens if the capital of a bank, the equity, the net worth of a bank goes negative, or it's on the verge of getting negative, which would be insolvency, right? A bankruptcy in accounting terms. So what can a government do to keep this bank alive? Well, it can do two things. It can do a bailout, which simply means the government gives money to the bank and as such expands the equity base or the capital base of a bank, or it can use a bail-in. What's a bail-in? A bail-in simply means that shareholders lose all their money, bondholders are turned into shareholders, and if necessary, some people with deposits also become shareholders instead of having deposits. This has great advantages, but it's generally feared because, as we've seen in Cyprus, which is a good example, they had a similar situation, and they took the money away from shareholders, took some money away from bondholders, turned bondholders into shareholders, and restoring the capital of the bank. This is generally good. However, some people lost their money on their deposits. So it's some measure that some people fear, especially in the Eurozone. What will happen if Deutsche Bank tomorrow goes bankrupt? What happens if Deutsche Bank tomorrow goes insolvent? Well, now with the current legislation, we will have bail-ins, which means shareholders will lose their money and some bondholders will turn into shareholders. This is normal bankruptcy procedure, right? Whenever a company goes bankrupt, the shareholders lose all their money, and then some people holding bonds, for instance, will get the rest of the assets of the company when the assets are liquidated. And this is simply a normal standard bankruptcy procedure we use in different industries. However, with banking, for some reason, we always looked at it differently, and we had these massive bailouts in 2008. For me, it's a really good development that now we're moving towards bail-ins instead of bailouts. It's a way fairer, it's a more fair way to support banks, failing banks, and keep the economic system working.
What do you think an Austrian economist would think of bail-ins?
I think they would tend to defend them, because bailouts, of course, are simply using taxpayers' money to get some bank capital into the bank, some capital, some equity in that bank. However, with a bail-in, we don't use any taxpayers' money. Shareholders lose all their money. They made a bad investment, they have to take the pain, and they'll lose their money. And the rest of the holders of the liabilities of the bank will get a right on whatever the assets of the bank are still worth. So it's a fairer and more just way to rescue insolvent banks. And I think most of Austrian economists would agree with this notion of bail-ins.
Thank you.
You're welcome.